this video is not alone. You can find its comrade on Nunmanji's channel right now. Check out some of his other stuff too. A boy with no expectations of himself, even when putting himself in the shoes of those around him, Yusuke took the hedonistic pleasure he could in his day-to-day. Skipping school, harassing Keiko, playing games, gambling, and above all, fighting. Combat was conflict at its most simple core, and Yusuke was damn good at it. No one close to his age even being able to touch him. Even as he entered the world of spirits, he took to it like a mole in the earth, learning and mastering spirit arts, pulled in by this new power and even new conflict. But there was a steady crevice growing as his world broadened, beginning to shift. Fighting wasn't just fighting anymore. Even if the most serious of delinquents could actually pose a threat to him, his own livelihood hadn't been at real risk. His view of his existence not so different from trash, Yusuke's self-value wasn't enough that he particularly minded being hurt. But being hurt did affect those around him, something Yusuke never wanted, learning from his death just how much. But even being thrust into these life and death stakes didn't really impact Yusuke, a young man who had already died. His opponents were beyond his experiences, but circumstances allowed for his strength, and he surmounted those in his way, until he met that which could not be surmounted. Togoro flexed with a power beyond anything Yusuke had experienced in his life, and yet still claimed it was but a fraction. Even when barely trying, he was no one to be trifled with. Much like Yusuke, he wanted an enjoyable fight, but with so few able to match him, he forced Yusuke into that position, gripping the boy with a fear he'd never felt before. The distinction was made all too clear in the Dark Tournament. Yusuke likes fighting. Battles against the likes of Chu and Jin excited him. They brought tricks and techniques to the table that kept Yusuke engaged, went at it with all their hearts to see who would be left standing. And they could do that without hurting anyone unnecessarily, without risking innocence or even life. But Dr. Ichigaki, or of course, Togoro, threatened whoever they chose. And Yusuke could not lose himself in those battles. How could he stand to enjoy himself while others risked suffering? And thus was born a contradiction, one that surfaced as he reached his peak. With more power he could fight harder and defend those he cared about, but he had a limit. Spirit energy is explained early on to hinge on the strength of emotions. Sayaka easily tossed Yusuke about in her desire for a friend, but once she had one, her feelings muted, and her powers became as non-threatening as she really was. And for Yusuke, who so deeply never wanted anyone hurt at his expense, felt his deepest, most powerful emotion when a dear friend of his met his end at Togoro's hand. That deepened his self-hatred, Yusuke lamenting that he couldn't muster the strength before it came to this. But with that strength he finally gave Togoro the fight of his life, and the one that would end it. Togoro had once lost everything, and dared not to make new bonds, aiming to achieve the ultimate strength alone. Togoro exemplified the extreme of Yusuke's ideals and motives, not having anyone near him to hurt, yet doing everything he needed to get stronger and enjoy a fight, but not in excess. His last actions to preserve Genkai's body for resurrection, and to keep Kuwabara alive revealed sympathy. Togoro choosing not to let Yusuke suffer like he did. He understood the young boy well, and with his passing, one who could not stand to have bonds could never be as strong as a young boy fighting for his friends. And yet, for Yusuke to achieve that strength, someone had to be hurt for his sake. Cutting off everyone was not the way, and Yusuke could not simply stop fighting, something he burned to do. Yet to keep fighting and protecting his friends meant they might be hurt, might have to be hurt. Trapped in this loop, Yusuke laments that he has reached his peak, as he couldn't go further on a path to strength without those close to him being hurt. As far as he was concerned, he was done fighting like that. Sensui had another assessment. The trials of the Chapter Black arc would put Yusuke on the defensive. Unusual fighters starting unusual fights. Yusuke was forced on a long string of battles he least liked to fight. As capable as he was in dealing with it, being unable to let loose put stress on him, something alleviated by Hiei, but the full battle against Sensui would give him all too much indulgence as he was once again put against something above him. By experiencing the losses of Genkai and Kuwabara, however temporary, and by reaching his supposed limits, Yusuke became so much more like Togoro. He would limit his power, and as much as he tried to repress it, he would hunger for more. Sensui insisted that this ugly part of himself, his desire to shed blood in the heat of combat, would be something he would continue to chase, throwing out all his convictions if need be. And he wasn't wrong. Yusuke stopped caring about the fate of the human world if the barrier fell, focusing entirely on his fight with Sensui. Yet that wasn't enough to win, so he let his monstrous self die. Instilling his comrades with the same emotion he felt in the Dark Tournament, he'd taken the route that seemed most ideal if it meant stopping Sensui, but unknowing of his true nature, it didn't stick. Yusuke returned, now capable of finishing the fight, something he very much wanted to do on his own, lamenting the control his ancestor placed on him. That allowed him to defeat Sensui once and for all. In the end, Yusuke couldn't escape the demon inside of him. Sensui had called that human desire of his to fight ugly, yet through the battle he came to enjoy it himself. Passing from the world, he would leave it unchanged. As Yusuke, faced with his desires with a chance to stay in the demon world, passed on that chance, not so easily being able to change who he is, whether that desire to fight was something demon or something human. And although he returned to the human world, that desire to battle was still something that very much remained. When opportunity returned, Yusuke's fallen morals became second nature, discussing humans as food, as offerings, without even blinking. If through that, then Raizen could better offer the strength to fight, or even just live, that was fine by Yusuke. But Raizen's will was beyond him. In his love for humans, he resisted those urges to the end. No one would have denied him, but his integrity allowed him, a demon, to surpass his nature, to act out his will without anyone coming to harm. And with the demon world on the cusp of a three-way war that would leave who knew how many dead, Yusuke proposed a compromise. Had the war started, Yusuke would have been able to have the fighting of his life, but like his father, he held back his nature, and the demon world went along with his whims. They all had their desires, but they didn't have to act on them in harmful ways, and the tournament would offer a straightforward path to fight and achieve them. To impose one's will on the world through luck and skill, without harm, was as good a reason to fight as any. In Yusuke's ancestry was a demon who loved a human so dearly, he had resisted the harm his own nature could have wrought. By managing his nature all the same, he would come to change the world, pushing it closer to one where demons and humans could exist together, where one who was a part of both worlds could be together with both sides of himself, having made his place in that world. And that's it for this one, but it makes a good segue into Nunmanji's video. Thanks to him for editing this one, and the funding to do so came from my patrons, such as Gloogle, Moz, Mr. Cynical, Sir Praligod, Flarbu, Oliver Mort, Mohammed Hakim, and Tengoon. Thanks again for watching.